You're listening and watching to Inside iOS Dev. Today with you, your host, Alex Bush.
And Sandeep Agarwal.
All right, guys. So in previous episodes, we covered how to use mocks for your unit testing purposes. But in this episode, we are going to show you how to utilize mocking of services even in your production code base.
So let's start with the simple example. So here we have created a simple Swift UI app where we wanted to present a list of data. So data is nothing but just an image and a title along with that. Here is that model we are expecting from the server. The server should return us this data, the ID, the title, and image URL. And we are going to show this data in the UI. So for showing this data, we have prepared a list. This is just simple Swift UI view, and that is presenting that list. And here goes the view model of the list. So it does nothing but just gets the data when we call this function get posts. And while it is getting those data, we are showing some loader, and we got a button which actually triggers this loading of the posts. And in case we get the empty data, we are showing the empty view. And when we get the list, we are showing the list. That is about it. And how we start is through this guy, just simply construct the view model. And it takes one parameter. Basically, we are injecting the API service into it in this view model. And this view model is then further injected into this posts view. So let's see how this plays. So here we got a button which essentially loads posts after clicking on it. So let's click on it. Woohoo! We saw some loading of data. We found one loader before that. And after that, we can see that we got some data from our backend. These are just simple images, and this is just dummy text from the backend.
Okay, Sandeep. So now imagine we have a pretty common typical scenario in any iOS application development, right? There's a new requirement coming from product managers to show, let's say in this case, a preview of the post's content, right? So what will happen, we'll have a new field called summary come through from the backend eventually when the backend's finished and to the iOS app, and we will be using it to display it in the table as well. In the list. But as of right now, the backend team is not ready. They are catching up. They have not built it. So we're technically blocked. We can't get that field from the response, but we need to proceed. We need to still code, right? And kind of against that expected contract. How can we do that?
Okay, let me introduce one field which you're saying. So we want this field, summary field, and that will be string, right? So since this is codable, this should fail. So if I run this, we got an error. So since we have changed this contract, so since we have marked this struct as codable, it was expecting the backend to deliver this field as well. And since this field was not present yet, we are getting this error right now. So Alex, what do you think we can do since we have to develop this feature? We don't want to wait on backend to add this field for us, but I really want to move further and complete my development on the front end side. So how can we approach this?
Right. So in this case, you could utilize mocking, but in this case, not in your unit tests, but an actual production code. So what we could do, since as you were showing before, the view model relies on a service to actually fetch the data, we can have a new implementation of that post request service that is a mock and returning the stubbed data that we're eventually expecting the backend to provide when it's finally done and deployed. And since it has the post request service has a protocol that it conforms to, we can have that mock implementation conform to the same protocol. But again, as I was saying, return the dummy stubbed data back.
Got it. So here, what we are doing here is we have a get posts method on this class. So, and essentially this thing is following this protocol. So if we just mock the service out and allow that mocked class to follow this protocol, we will be able to do our stuff, right? Without actually calling the backend API. So for that, the parameter, the service parameter should actually use serviceable type, right? It should not expect the post request service type, but it should expect post request serviceable type. So,
yeah, if we follow good objective-oriented practices and we rely on interfaces rather than concrete classes or concrete types, then we'll be able to achieve it.
got it. So if I look into the post list view model, we are already relying on the protocol instead of the concrete implementation, right? What we can do is we can just simply make this post mocking service, which will implement this protocol, and we need to implement this method. So let me just add the summary to it. Great. Now we just need to pass this guy instead of the actual request service. So we were passing this post request service initially in the view model. We now just need to replace it with mock request service. So after running this post view will not actually query the server, but instead get the results from here. Let's see it in action. Wow, that was so instantaneous because we are getting the data all from our front end locally. We just successfully mocked the response. So we can see that we are not getting that error anymore because we are not hitting the actual service. But what our target was to show the sum preview, right? So let's add that sum preview in the cell. Okay, so guys, we can now see the summary here. Nice. So we are not here waiting for the backend anymore. We have just updated our contract and moved ahead with that contract, and also updated our front end code to reflect that. So whenever the backend gets ready to send us the summary, this thing will work out of the box. We just need to switch this service again to the actual service. That's it.
Now, when the backend team eventually catches up and they add and deploy that change and add the summary field to their actual backend response, as you can see here, guys, when we actually update the backend, we just updated it. Now it has the summary, so we don't have to stub and mock anymore, but the contract remains the same. And basically, the only thing we need to do to now make it, again, working fully in production correctly, we just switch back from the mock service implementation to our real production post-service implementation.
Thanks, Alex, for updating that response in backend. So guys, let's switch back to our original API service and let's see if that works. Because the contract has been updated on the backend, we should not again see that error. Okay. And we don't have to change anything. And boom. So it is working flawlessly. See, we don't have to change anything in our model or view model. When the backend updates the contract on his side, then we just need to switch back to our original service and it is working flawlessly here.
Yeah, this is the power of objective-oriented programming and kind of working against interfaces rather than concrete types. Okay, Sandeep, some people might be asking, actually, could have we done this with something else? Like, let's say Charles Proxy is a very popular tool for mocking and debugging and mocking HTTP requests, right?
Yeah, I agree on that part that Charles is really a good option instead of mocking. But Alex, if we happen to use Charles, we can't use our code. We have to work at the JSON level. See, if we look into our request service, what this is expecting is the response from the server inside a JSON array, which will be inside a key called posts. And we have to update the JSON instead. So let's see how we can do that. So here is one of the ways we can mock that response. We can just use Charles to map that response we are getting from the server. So here is one option called map local. So we just need to click on it, and we just need to choose the response we want to send to our application instead of the backend response we are getting. Since we are getting this response here, this response from the server. So now since the backend has updated its response, it has included the summary. But let's suppose we have to change this response. We will just copy this guy here, and I will update this here. So let's say I just want to append 1, 2, 3 in front of this, and I will just save it. And that's it. And what I will do is again go to map local and choose the path that's already selected. So I just updated that file locally. Now the response has been mapped. So if I run the app again, see, now the response we are getting is not from the backend, but this is the mocked response we are getting because of Charles. It actually didn't send this request to the server. Instead, it just returned the response from the local machine. So here is one of the ways to do that. But the argument I want to give against here is that since we are developers, we have a power of mocking the things, right? We can just mock the required class or service and then just work like I showed earlier. And this mocking with is also fine, but you know, what are the gotchas involved? What is the work involved doing all this stuff? You have to copy the exact JSON you want to pass, and you have to update the right field. Suppose this field was 2 levels deep inside something, and you have to make sure that the structure is correct, that structure remains intact in your response as well. Otherwise your app will break again.
Yeah, and also another sort of argument here is that mocking it in code, we could have actually made a build and shipped it to, let's say, QA people to test, and it would have worked, right? But we can't really bundle it up and ship the Charles change and stubbing of JSON response to QA, right? It's not packaged within the binary of that particular iOS app build. QA people can do that too, but they'll have to fiddle with Charles themselves. It adds complexity for testing. But if we wanted just to test the UI part, that it's implemented correctly until the backend's ready, then what we did, mocking it and stubbing it in code, is the way to go. Okay, guys, that was it for today. You can reach us at hello@insideiosdev.com or tweet at us at insideiosdev on Twitter, and reach out if you have any questions or comment under the video on YouTube. Please like and subscribe it. It helps a lot. And we will see you next time. Happy coding.